Welcome back to the Skewed Moo Kitchen, and today we're going to make Korean milk bread. Actually, I'm going to make Korean milk bread dinner rolls. It's a fairly straightforward process. It is time consuming because there's many steps of rising. Just a few common ingredients you need here. Bread flour. You can use all-purpose flour if that's what you've got, but the bread flour will give you a lighter, fluffier loaf. Granulated sugar, whole milk, some butter, yeast, an egg just for an egg wash over the top, and some kosher salt. And no special equipment really needed for this, measuring devices, bowls, that sort of thing. So let's get started. We're going to start with 4 cups of the bread flour, just 4 level cups. Like I said, you can use all-purpose flour. It just won't give you quite the fluffiness you're going to get with the bread flour. Bread flour just has a higher gluten content. So it's basically going to trap the carbon dioxide bubbles from the yeast better. Okay, got that. Then going to add, make sure I get the quantities correct here. This is 1 3/4 teaspoon kosher salt. If you use a different kind of salt rather than kosher, you need to adjust that amount because some of them are more compact or less compact than this. So don't skip the salt because it's an important nutrient for the yeast, so it won't rise properly. And then we're going to add in 3 tablespoons of just granulated sugar, plain old cane sugar. And then we're going to mix this well. So just to kind of get all the various dry ingredients incorporated here. So everything's evenly distributed. And now I'm going to take some cold butter, and basically I need 3 tablespoons of that, and we're going to sort of incorporate that into our dry ingredients here. So I'm going to throw in about 3 tablespoons, and I'm going to use a pastry cutter. If you don't have one of these, a fork will do in a pinch. And basically it's just going to sort of chop the butter up into small pieces. And as it chops, the flour is going to stick to them, so basically we'll incorporate that in. This works better if the colder your butter is. Mine has been sitting out for a couple minutes here, so it's starting to get soft. Okay, that should do the trick. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to just make a little hole here in the middle of the bowl. And I'm going to add in 1 cup of whole milk. And don't try to use skim milk or something like that. It just isn't going to taste as good. You can survive a little bit of fat. So I'm just going to pour that in the middle here. And I'm going to keep a little bit. Now I preheated this to about 115 degrees, 115 degrees in the microwave. Took about 45 seconds. The idea is we're going to put yeast in this, and we want it to be a little bit warm, but not too warm. If it's hot, it'll kill the yeast. And I'm going to Add a little bit of water into that, and don't worry that it's spilling out. That's not going to make any difference. And now I'm going to take my yeast and mix that in. This is 2 1/4 teaspoons of just all-purpose instant yeast. Buy it anywhere. And yes, if your liquid is too hot, it'll kill the yeast and this whole process will fail. You'll make crackers. I'm just going to get this mixed in. And once that's mixed in, then we're just going to basically mix the whole thing up. And I usually start with a spoon here, and eventually we're going to get to the point where we need to use our hands. And it's a little too dry, obviously, so I've still got some of the liquid. If you ever made pizza dough, this is a lot like a pizza dough. I've still got a little bit of water left. I'm going to hold on to that if I need it at the very end. Now, the amount of water you use or amount of liquid you use will vary a little bit just depending on temperature and humidity and that sort of thing. It's one of the things with breads is it's all a little, you have to do it enough, add enough, but there's no real specified amount sometimes. So now we're just going to get in here and get this all mixed up. So once we have this enough, it should be so it doesn't really stick to your hands much, just a little bit. Yeah, it looks like I'm probably going to need the rest of the liquid here. I have to admit, I've never actually made this recipe before. I've made bread a few times, but this... Okay, I think we have pretty well mixed. Now, so I'm going to take the dough here, the last little scraps of it out. Set the bowl aside for now. We're just going to put it on counter and knead this a little bit. And yeah, I think I got that about the right stickiness. It sticks a little bit, but it's not leaving big clumps behind on the board. So I'm going to come back. I'm going to have to do this for about 8 minutes. And this initial kneading here is very important. Basically what's happening while we do this is, we're continuing to make sure everything's mixed well and well distributed. We're also causing the gluten to develop, which is what's going to hold the whole thing together. So anyway, I'll be back in a few and show you the next step. So one thing I've discovered is 8 minutes is a long time while you're kneading dough. So now we have this, it's should be done. It's not sticky anymore, it's smooth, it's elastic, you can pinch it and pull it and it stretches back. So now we're just going to kind of form this into a nice neat ball. And now we're just going to place it back in the bowl we used to mix it is fine. Place it back in there. I'm going to cover it with plastic wrap, put a damp towel over it, and put it just someplace warm, but not hot. Definitely out of the sun, that sort of thing. And this is going to have to rise till it doubles in size. And that's going to take between, I say half an hour, 45 minutes, maybe as much as an hour and a half, just depending on temperature, altitude, the vigorousness of your yeast. Again, it's just one of those things you have to let it go enough. So I'll be back in a while, and the process will continue. The dough has been rising for about an hour now, and I think that's probably going to be good enough. So we can unwrap it here and turn it out of the bowl. It's roughly doubled in volume. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to punch this down, kind of shape it into a loaf shape, just so we can judge. And I'm going to cut it into 3 pieces, 3 equal pieces. So I'll roughly do this. And just going to shape this into round balls. So now that we've got that done, we're basically going to just cover these and let them rise again until they've doubled in size. So you want to make sure they're not too close together on your countertop or whatever. And again, it's just the waiting game at this point. So we'll be back in, I don't know, probably try them in a half an hour, see how they look, and maybe longer. Dough's been rising for a while here. And basically, this is going to make 8 dinner rolls. It's in 3 pieces, so I'm basically going to make one big piece out of this so I can divide it up into 8 equal parts. So I'm just going to sort of roll this together. So we don't want seams in it, so we need to kind of mix it all back into one piece. Okay, now basically we're looking for 8 equal pieces. Cut it in half. Now we're just going to kind of flatten these out into nice round discs. A few of these are not quite even. Didn't do a good job of getting them even. It's still a little small. Okay. Now we're going to let these rise yet again till they, again, approximately double in size. This is not a fast process. Plastic wrap is basically to keep them from drying out. Okay, we're almost done. Basically these have risen a little bit more, and what we're going to do now is put these in cake pans. So I've got 2 buttered cake pans, about a half a tablespoon of butter in each one. And basically we're just going to flatten these and just pack them into the cake pans here. So, and then we'll cover those again with plastic, and basically let these raise until they're sticking up over the edge of the pan by, about an inch. So probably doubling in size again after being punched down. These are going to make pretty large rolls from the looks of it. And cover these with plastic wrap again. normally an hour or so again. I'm going to actually put these in the refrigerator overnight. It's getting kind of late, and I suspect these are going to be best eaten warm. So I'm going to bake them for dinner tomorrow. So there we go. 8 big milk bread dinner rolls. Last thing we're going to do is, before we bake these, is we're going to put an egg wash on them, brush some egg on the top of them so they brown up nicely. We're going to do that right before we bake them. And since I'm going to do that tomorrow, we're not going to do it now, but I'll show that to you before I put them in the oven. And then we'll show you how they come out, and we'll see how they look. Okay, we're back. These have actually risen in the refrigerator overnight, and now we're just going to do an egg wash on them and bake them. So basically, I've beat a couple of eggs here. Normally you'd only use one, but when you weren't looking, made a second batch of this, so I need 2. And I'm just going to try to evenly coat these. This is mostly so they're shiny when they bake. And I've got the oven preheated to 350 degrees back there. And these are going to bake for 25 to 28 minutes. It should be a fairly fast process. And one thing, I've never made this recipe before, but these things are going to be huge. They're going to look like giant hamburger buns. Okay. Got the egg wash. I'm going to toss these in the oven, and I'll be back in about half an hour. So I've got my milk bread rolls out of the oven, 25 minutes at 350 degrees, and they came out really nicely. You can see here, nice and shiny. That egg wash does that. And it's actually a pretty simple process, but it takes a long time. There was a lot of kneading and raising and pounding down and kneading and raising, but they came out really good, and I'm pretty happy. So that's it for this time. We'll be back eventually with new recipes. Hit the subscribe button below, like if you liked it, and the notification bell if you want messages when I post stuff, which will be hopefully at least once a week. Anyway, from the Skewed Moo Kitchen, we'll talk to you later. Thanks.